Hey guys, Coach Blauer here, special guest Ryan Michler. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? Good to connect again.
Yeah. You're doing amazing stuff, and at the end of the show, I'm going to let you talk a little bit of what you do. So my listeners, most of which are people who probably be really interested in Order of Man and everything you
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
But what I'm doing here is I'm kind of I want to change this view. There we go. So we're gonna when we release this, it'll just be audio. I don't know how to set up the whole YouTube thing yet, but I am recording it on Zoom, so
No
maybe one
worries.
day it'll be there so people can see your
Yeah. If you need
amazing.
any help, let me know. That's something we've been doing quite a bit of lately. So if you need any input,
Oh
just
wow,
shoot me a
yeah,
message. We'll
I
connect.
might need some help. I
It's
do
really
need
easy. Really easy.
nice, so people can see your amazing beard and your cool hat.
That's
And
it, man.
first off, you interviewed me a long time ago, and the the trajectory that you've been on as a leader, as a man, as a writer, as a dad, as everything you've done, I'm amazed with what you've done with Order of
Thank you.
Man. It's impressive, and just even watching you build your office and moving into the new. I have a soft spot in my heart for Maine. I used to live East Coast Montreal, and every single summer I would go down and camp or get bed and breakfast places. I'd spend most of the summer in Maine every year.
Oh, really? Yeah. Maine's amazing. We've been here for 8 months now, and it's unbelievable. I'm so glad we decided to move out here.
Well, and you built an amazing compound for all your programs.
This is true,
This
which
is
is a big reason why we came out here. I've got an amazing barn, and we've got some property, and it's served us well, not only with the organization but with the family as well. It's been
yeah,
really good.
it's amazing. So these are going to be short interviews, just so everyone listening to this. I had this idea um, as I mindlessly scrolled through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn the other day, going, "Oh, I'm wasting my life, but my thumb is getting really incredibly strong." Um,
Yeah.
and I said, you know what, I'm going to talk to? I'm going to reach out to different people that I follow that vicariously give me kicks in the butt. And what I mean by that is, like, I work my ass off. I'm being a little facetious here,
Of
uh,
course.
but but we all slip into this, the roller coaster of life, up and down, and we need to catch ourselves. That's self-awareness. So you're one of the guys who, whenever I read your post, like, I usually sit up and go, well, fuck, I got to get to work, right? And so I'm going to be interviewing people like that who truly are influencers, in the sense that if you can influence an influencer, you're a fucking influencer, right?
Yeah, of
So
course.
so,
Absolutely.
so
I'm
I
I'm
wrote it.
honored and humbled.
Thank you, buddy. So I wrote out 10 questions. You're the first guy I've done this with. Just so the audience knows, I'm not sharing these questions with people. So some of them will be yes, no, and some of them might go deep. We don't know. And I might, after this, I might change all the questions because they suck.
I'm your
But
guinea pig.
right, you're my guinea pig. But the first one is super simple. And this is all meant to be discussed through this COVID-19 vibe that the world is dealing with. It's
Hmm.
unprecedented, right? If
Sure.
how
Yeah.
many times has the word unprecedented been used, by everybody in the media and the news? But the reality is, it's insane. The world has never closed down at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
It's a weird phenomenon we're in the middle of right now.
Right. So question number one, how are you?
Hmm. I'm good. I'm good. It's funny because people ask me, how has this affected and impacted me? Fortunately, I have the luxury of not being impacted all that much. I mean, number one, we're here in Maine. It's pretty sparse. We live in a rural area. Number two, I homeschool. I say I. My wife homeschools our kids. We've been doing that for 10 months. Number three, I work at home. Like, nothing has changed for me other than I
Right.
can't go to the convenience store and buy a Coke or something.
Right.
But other than that, everything has been good. I will say that we found ourselves a little wanting in the food storage and the ammunition department, but we've shored up those vulnerabilities over the past month or so, and man, we're doing good. Little
Nice.
stir crazy, but we get outside. We've got some acreage, so we get outside. We go for walks in the snow and have fun, and life is good. I
Right.
realize not everybody that is in that situation, but we're doing pretty well.
Right. And I'm glad to hear that. And we don't want people to hate you with your answer. Hey, we're doing we're doing great. We're playing. We're
Yeah.
making so much. I'm teasing, and this will come full circle. How's your family in terms of and when I say how's your family, obviously what I'm asking is like they see the news, they talk, there's
Yeah.
conversations. How are they doing with this?
My wife is good. Every once in a while and occasionally she'll get stressed out or worried about, do we have the right provisions, or, hey, I'm not going to be able to go to the store for 3 weeks. Like, do we have what we need? Do we have milk, eggs, et cetera, et cetera? Uh, my two youngest kids are oblivious, frankly. I've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. My 6-year-old daughter knows a little bit about what's going on, but my 9-year-old and 12-year-old boys, especially my 12-year-old, are very concerned. What's going on? What is this coronavirus thing? How does this impact us? Can we go out in public? Like, what is the threat? He's very, very attuned to the way other people are responding and behaving and acting, something he's very intuitive with. So we've had to have some serious conversations with him. He tends to be a worrier anyways, just
Right.
generally. So we've had to put his mind at ease and let him know that we're doing the right things. And we've included him in the process of organizing the house and getting emergency plans in place and inventorying ammunition and food storage and things like this. So the more that we get him involved, the more it sets him at ease. But he is somebody who worries generally, so we've had to be very aware of that. But again, and I say that we have the luxury. We do have the luxury, and we built this. I don't want to discount the fact that we've built it, but we do have the luxury of things really not changing all that much, except for in our minds just wondering how all of this is going to play out, and then the strategies we put in place.
Right. Great. And it's in case it's not obvious to anyone listening to this, the purpose of talking to people who kind of are people I look up to and get inspired by is we can all learn stuff. Like some of you, if you're listening to this and you're anti-gun, you're freaking out. You're going, your kids, stockpiling ammo. Like that's not the point.
Right.
It's what is good parenting? What is it? Doesn't matter what your politics are or what your belief system is. It's you know it's learning from all the people I'm going to interview and just getting ideas, and stuff will resonate with you. So that's
Yeah.
really the purpose of this.
It's
Cool.
just expanding your mind and opening up the possibilities. I know when we started homeschooling, for example, it was very early on. My wife left. I think if I remember correctly, she went out of town to go to a homeschooling conference in Nashville,
Right.
and I was here with the kids for 3 or 4 days, which is fine. But she said, "Hey, you're responsible for school for these 3 or 4 days." And I remember one of the first lessons, and I sent her a couple pictures that we went through, was how to break down and clean an AR-15 and all the components and features of an AR-15. And I
Right.
sent her some pictures. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Hey," like, she's not anti-gun or anything, but I'm like,
Right.
"Hey, you gave me the opportunity to teach. Like, this is something they would need to know, right? And I want them to understand how this works, what it's used
Right.
for. I don't want there to be any curiosity about this. I want it to be all out in the open, and them to be, somewhat prepared based on their maturity level and age." And we
And
had a good time talking
and,
about it.
and doing that's very interesting. And doing that is understanding shapes and how things fit together and how
Of
things work.
course, it's a puzzle.
How many parts are there, right? How to clean properly. That's classic.
Yep, that's
Um,
exactly right.
the what is the best thing about this shelter in place lockdown for you? Is there a best thing for you?
Yeah, I mean,
A
we
weird
we really
question.
have to turn. No, I like this question. We have to turn towards each other. That's the best thing for me,
Mhm.
is that we have to focus on each other. We take all of these luxuries of modernity at just we take them for granted, right? We have food, we have family, we have people we care about, we have entertainment, we have TV, we have electricity, we have heating and air, and we have all these things that we take for granted. And now we're realizing, whoa, 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 wait a minute. This might actually shut off. Like, this isn't like a right. This is something that is a privilege, and
Mhm.
at any given moment it could shut off.
Nice.
So now we start focusing on the fundamental elements of our life, which is our family, and then making sure that we are adequately provisioned and that we have the right things in place. And but just for me, it's like sitting down at 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning, and my son is like, "Dad, can we do a puzzle?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, we can do a
Mm,
puzzle. Let's
mm,
sit down and do a puzzle." And to me, I'm like, I love it. I'm like, this is
right.
nice. or my son comes to me, my oldest son, and he says, "Hey, Dad, can we go for a walk?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go for a walk." And if you walk the entire perimeter of our property, it's just over 1 mile. So we get the
Nice.
snowshoes on because there's still snow on the ground. We get the snowshoes on and we go walk and we do 2 or 3 laps and we get 3 miles in and we talk about, the other day we talked about girls. He's got a crush on this girl and he was telling me about, and he was nervous to tell me. I'm like, man,
Huh.
this is
That's
awesome.
so
I
awesome.
love that. I love that.
Hmm. Nice. Worst thing about the lockdown.
Um, just not being able to go out and see my friends. I've got some close friends here, and then not to be able to train. That's actually been really hard. I train jujitsu. I've been pretty serious over the past 8, 9, 10 months, and I'm like, I need to go roll. Like I need to be put under some pressure. I need to put some pressure on some other people, and like not being able to do that has been, frankly, it's been rough. That's been a hard part of it for sure.
It's you're obviously you're training at home and doing stuff, but it
Of
is
course.
the chest with muscles at 100 miles an hour of working with another human is
Yeah. Well,
it
and it's different. I roll with my kids. My youngest son, he's 4, for example. He's like, "Dad, can we go wrestle?" I'm like, "Yeah," but wrestling with your 4-year-old is different than wrestling with a guy who actually is trying to
right.
strangle you, like legitimately
I,
trying to strangle you.
I hope you're able to handle your 4-year-old. You're still winning all of those matches,
It's a toss up. It goes
right?
50-50. It
Right.
just depends on the situation.
Nice. Um, Next question. There's so much confusing information out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much manipulation in the media. I read something today in a private forum. It's a police officer buddy of mine, private forum. I haven't vetted this, but that there's I saw it online where someone said, whenever there's any type of event, there's always um, smartphone capture leaks of stuff, but
Sure.
there's nothing out there really from our side in the US for hospitals, was the claim. You don't really see
Yeah.
this. And I thought that was interesting. And it was like whenever you see anything, there's always some person who caught something on a phone. And then you saw the big scam with CBS, saying, look at this hospital in, I
Yeah.
don't know
They were
if you saw
using
that.
China's
And
hospital
they were
or
using
Japan or something.
something in Italy.
Italy. That's what it was.
Anyways, this isn't about all of that, but the reality is we are all puppets in this play. We're being manipulated. Our strings are being pulled, and of course, there's once there's a conspiracy. This is to take down Trump. This is this. Then there's the others said no, the virus is real and people are really dying. And I read today something interesting that hospital workers are now starting to come out because of, I guess, their integrity. But I haven't seen any of this. So again, not vetted for whoever's listening, but they've been told that anybody who dies in the hospital who has CV, the coronavirus, is told they died because of coronavirus. So
That's
if
why
they
they
were
died,
already,
right? Yeah.
yeah, if they were dying already, they're 88 and they're done, and then they get the virus, it happens to go in there, it's then attributed to this. So this stuff blows my mind because, and this has been in the news before, where you look at, and not to diminish the value of anyone's life, that goes without
Of
saying,
course. Of
but
course.
if if somebody had 6 months to live for all these 8 other problems and then gets, it's like somebody going in and catching pneumonia, or you go in to get your hip replaced and you have an adverse reaction to the at the operation. We can't just blame it on one thing. So my question for you isn't really what you think about that, although do share. It's, where are you getting your information is the actual question. Where are you getting your information where you go, this is what I'm going to consume and this is what I'm going to talk to my wife and my kids about?
Yeah.
Or does that make sense? Is that a
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I saw a post on Twitter the other day and it said, if you turn on the media and you consume this in mass, it's going to create some problems for you mentally, right? It's going to start
right?
messing with you. And they said, but microdoses is okay.
Right.
And and so for me, I take it in microdoses. I might jump on Twitter. I might turn on another news network or listen to the White House briefings or any number of places, a podcast. Fortunately, I have access to individuals who want to come on the podcast. We had a professor with the Mayo Clinic come on and talk about his research that he's doing with vaccines and vaccinations and the seriousness of this virus. but I try to take it all with a grain of salt. And I've always been very pragmatic. I've never really been somebody who gets hyped up and all this stuff. Like, what's the bare minimum that I need to know? Well, I need to know that the virus is real, and I'm fairly convinced that the
Mm.
virus is real. Do I know where it comes from? No, I don't. Do I know if it was manufactured? Do I know if it was an accident, eaten through a bat or whatever it is? I don't know. I don't know. There's so many varying stories, but I know it's real. I know it's a threat. I know people are dying. I don't know how many people are dying. Somewhere between 0.5% to 4% maybe of people who contract this virus. So there's a threat. It's small, but there's a threat. And I know that I need to take care of my family, take care of the provisions that I need, have emergency plans in place. I wrote a book a couple of years called Sovereignty, so make sure that I'm independent financially of other institutions, that I'm not in debt, that I have provisions stored up, that I have fuel that I might need, that we are sovereign as me an individual and us as a family. And I feel like we can take it in stride.
Right.
That's the thing for me is like take this in stride. Take everything I hear with a grain of salt. Try to extract the bare minimum information I need to know to keep myself and my family and my neighbors safe and protected. And then listening to conflicting stories is good too, right? You hear this from this source and this from this source, and if they're conflicting, good. Okay, well, the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. So, what do I need to do in order to ensure that I'm protected against this potential threat?
Right.
So, I get my sources from a lot of different places, and I do it in micro doses. I'm not like tapped into
That's the
CNN
big message.
24/7, right?
Right.
It plays with your mind. It doesn't serve you well. In fact, it probably hinders you because it creates some sort of paralysis by analysis. And I know that you're big on that, right? Is like reacting, right? Your body like reacts. Well, your mind reacts too. Your mind has been hardwired through hundreds of thousands of years of evolution to react to stimulus, right? And if we inundate it with a bunch of stimulus that is not accurate, then we're making a bunch of faulty assumptions, and we're trying to game the system that has been pretty efficient over the past
Yeah.
100,000 years.
Especially if the stimuli is survival threat, and
Right.
now what you have is your sympathetic nervous system firing all the time. So
Right. That fight or flight, right? And so you're not making conscious, deliberate, intentional decisions.
right, cool. I dig it. Um, Next question. You kind of answered it. You didn't. You maybe dive a little bit deeper. Deeper. What bothers you the most about what's going on?
Hmm.
Is there something you go, man, that like really frustrates me when because this isn't or is or
Yeah. For me, I would say the opportunistic approach to it, right? So people take a crisis, whether it's the media,
Hmm,
politicking, even some forms of capitalism. They look at this crisis as an opportunity. And
right.
there's a healthy way to look at that, right? Like for my business, for example, I think about, okay, well more men are at home. If I can put more content out there, then they'll be better served and I will be better served. Our objectives are aligned. But then that can be taken to the extreme, and you can pit people against each other, and you can do things that are at the expense of other individuals, their physical or mental or emotional well-being. And I hate to see the media manipulating this and tweaking it and changing it and
Hmm.
crafting all these clever storylines in order to get people riled up and get more eyeballs on the screen. I hate the politicking of it, like, oh, well, this is Trump's fault and this is this person's fault and Democrats, Republicans. It's like, like I understand we need to come to some sort of general consensus and we need to figure out some of these problems, but I hate this like overly opportunistic approach to what it is we're dealing with, because we're overlooking the fact that people are dying. Dads, mothers, husbands, wives, grandparents, kids are dying, and yet we're worried about ratings.
Right.
We're worried about who the politician is that we should listen to. It's very, very frustrating to me. But at the same time, I see a lot of people frustrated with the same thing, and then returning to what's important: your family, your friends, your neighbors. I see people buying groceries. I see people supporting causes that they're engaged in. I see organizations pivoting their entire product line to now focus on making personal protection equipment and masks and gowns and other provisions that people need. Like, there's a lot of good that comes from the
Right.
frustrations that we see as well.
Right. That's a great answer, man. It was a, it's the phrasing of the question is deliberately oblique because I don't want to lead. That was a
Yeah.
great answer. I loved it. Without this being political, if I suddenly said, "Hey, Ryan, you're in charge," right? You're in charge of the world. What would you do?
Whew, that's the question there. Fortunately, I'm not actually, because man, what do you do? Look, I don't have all the information at hand either, though, right? We're basing our response on limited information. We
Right.
don't have that
And
information.
and let me set this up better. What I'm referring to, and I should have been clear, is, and I don't have the info too. I'm where you at, and I do a lot of what you suggested in terms of, hey, are we okay? I'm in the same boat too. I've been working out of my house for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably don't have as much ammo as you. And there's no snow in California, so
Little different situation.
right. The uh, but I'm really talking about the the shelter in place and the shutdown, and I'm talking about here. And I'll rephrase the question. There is some strong, not evidence yet, but contention that shutting down the economy and that collapse
Mm-hmm.
could 100x the the death toll of just COVID-19. And
Yeah.
and so where are you with shelter in place versus like, hey, like we gotta figure out a way to get the world back in business.
Yeah, it's interesting because so my background is financial planning. And so I joined and got into the financial planning industry in 2008, 2009 when we saw a big correction and crash in the market. And it's interesting because, even if you look at economically, I mean, these problems have life and death uh, potential outcomes, right? Like
Right.
people are killing themselves over finances, and we're going to see that. There's going to be a lot of men and women who are dealing with some very difficult financial struggles, and they're going to decide to kill themselves. So
Right.
these economic responses have very real implications. My thought is we don't have all the data at hand, which is very unfortunate because there's countries that are, China in particular, are choosing not to give us accurate data and information. Well, we need the accurate data to determine who is really at risk here. Is it the
Right.
elderly generation? Is it all of us? What are the actual death rates? Because now we take this data, this critical data, and we say, okay, well, I think the general consensus is that the elderly are more at risk than somebody who's younger, right? We've kind of come to that conclusion. Okay, so maybe instead of worrying about shutting everybody down, we isolate our elders, we isolate those who are compromised, their immune systems, or they're dealing with other health issues and they're compromised, so we isolate them, as opposed to shutting down the entire economy. We protect those individuals because we do need to protect them, and we do have an obligation to exhibit some sort of empathy and care over these individuals, and then we allow everything else to work. And what's interesting is that through the medium of capitalism, uh, that we will begin to solve these problems. We will actually come up with the answers to the problems that we're dealing with
Right.
if we allow ourselves to go to work, to be industrious, to be creative, to as Adam Smith would say, the invisible hand. Right? We put the invisible hand at work, meaning here's a problem, and the solution is created by those who are driven by potentially profits and compensation for those problems. Like, this is not an issue to me. So
Right.
I think with the limited information I have, my thought leans more towards let's isolate those who could potentially be impacted and potentially even die. And then let's get those who are immune. This is another thing we need to figure out. Like, who's already immune? How many millions of, and I believe there are millions of Americans who have been impacted by coronavirus, meaning they have contracted and recovered from this
Right.
infectious disease. Well, how many of us and how many are immune? Let's get those people back to work.
Right.
Because if we can get them back to work and isolate these other individuals, then the economy continues to grow, continues to provide solutions and opportunities, and we don't shut everything down at the expense of the select few who maybe are at grave risk. But we also protect those individuals.
Great answer. Great answer. Um, So this is sort of like an answer I've already, or a question I've already asked you, but now I'm asking you, not on the show. There's no mic.
Okay.
You're not Ryan, the front man of the business, motivating
Sure.
people.
Sure.
Um, what's been the most challenging thing for you?
Um, there's a lot of uncertainty about my business. That's one of the biggest concerns that I have. We've managed to build, I say we, I'm talking about me and my wife and the people who help and support with Order of Man. We've built a very profitable, lucrative business. And it's dependent on other people paying us for the products and services that we offer. And if we see a loss of 30, 40, 50% of jobs and unemployment and loss in the market, well, that has a very serious impact on us and what I'm doing. So, uh, fortunately, with my financial planning background, I've been pretty prudent with my financial decisions. We've invested a lot of money. We've set money aside. Like, we have everything that we need in place, but I am genuinely concerned about how long this lasts.
Right.
Right. And the longer that it lasts, the more difficult it becomes, not only for me, but for a lot of other people. And we're
Mm-hmm.
so interconnected that if it impacts you, then it indirectly impacts me. So just making sure that, we have the provisions we need. And you know what? Like, this could go on for 2 years.
Right.
Like, legitimately. Like, we could recover. Maybe this thing dies down as it starts to warm up. Maybe it's a flu or a seasonal type thing like we've seen in the past. I don't know if that's the case, but let's just assume for a second it is. Okay, well, things clear up in the next 2 or 3 months. All right, are you going to go back and eat dinner at a restaurant? Are you going to go to the game? Are you going to travel? Are you going to go to Disneyland? Probably not. I mean, that could take years
Right.
before we get back on top of that.
And the
So,
world has definitely changed as a result.
absolutely.
Yeah.
At the same time, it presents a lot of opportunities uh, to evolve, to grow. And so for me, the biggest concern is, am I evolving and growing at the speed and the rate at which I need to based on how quickly the world is changing? And it changed overnight almost, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're talking like a 30-day period. It's like the world is completely different in 30 days. That's insane.
Yeah.
So I need to continue to evolve as fast as the world is and the environment is. That's a
Nice.
concern of mine.
Nice. Very good. Last question. And this is more now you're back, um, Ryan the motivator,
Okay.
order man. Uh, we got parents listening. We've got mostly, I'm going to guess, this is not meant to be derogatory, folks listening to this, the type A, that's who my audience is:
Sure.
police,
Of
military,
course.
martial artists, self-defense instructors, CrossFitters. Um, you know, what's, you got a minute to talk to them. What type of guidance, what type of inspiration, something that you want them to really think about going through this?
Yeah. I've thought a lot about high performers, whether we're talking about in business, in career, or on the football field and in sports. You take high performers. High performers always want the ball, right? Like, we always want the ball
Mm,
when it counts. So that last 10-second play, it's like, let's develop a play where I get the ball and I take the shot. That's what we want, right? We want to be in the game. We want to be in the moment. And right now we have a perfect opportunity to be that individual. And
mm,
all of your training, all of your knowledge and acquisition of skill and everything else that you've been doing, now you get to put it to the test. Like, that's actually really cool. You get to see if what you've done is enough. And if it's not enough, you need to make those corrections, and that's okay. But you're getting a real world test to figure out is if what you're doing is enough. And if it's not, great. Now you see in real time with real consequences, which can be scary, I understand. And I have those feelings too. With real consequences, that's not enough. That's not adequate. Good. Shore it up. Because if there's no risk or no consequence, it's not as serious and you won't be as likely to take action. But if there is that real consequence, like we're dealing with now, potentially death, then you're going to be more apt to take that action step.
Right.
So for me, this is a powerful, powerful opportunity to evaluate exactly where I am and where I stand. And there's going to be some areas in which I find myself wanting. Good. Let's shore those areas up. Let's make myself stronger. Because when this passes, and it will pass, am I going to be better off or am I going to be the same guy?
Mm.
Right? Or am I going to be worse? Like I know there's people who are taking this and they're watching tiger movies on Netflix and they're, eating whatever they want. They're not training, they're not exercising, they're not reading books, they're not doing anything. And they're using this opportunity or this moment as an opportunity to coast, to ride. And then
Right.
there's other individuals who are like, you know what? When this is all said and done in 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it is, I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be fitter. I'm going to be more intelligent. I'm going to be more capable. I'm going to have more provisions. This is your opportunity. Like, let's see if what we've done is enough. And if it's not, perfect time to start shoring those weaknesses up.
Love it, man. Great answer. Ryan, that's our time. I want to try and keep these
Awesome,
short,
Tony.
but man, that was full. That was awesome.
Yep.
Um, best place for people to learn more about you.
Orderaman.com is our website. If you want to connect with me personally, which I would recommend this anyways, is just connect with me on Instagram or Twitter at Ryan Michler. My last name is Michler, and shoot me a message, follow what we're doing. I'm pretty good to get back to messages. I try to respond to actually every single person who messages me. So if you have some thoughts or ideas or feedback or questions, hit me up in a DM on Instagram and I'll try to do my best to get back with you.
Awesome. Dude, when this is all over, we'll reconnect. I got to come out and visit you, get back to Maine a little bit.
Well, not only that, but we talked a couple of months ago about having you come out and lead some training and some instruction for our guys.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've had to postpone our 2 events that we had planned and sold out, which is unfortunate, but we're going to get you back and we're going to get those events back online and get you out here to help do some instruction for those guys.
Be awesome. Okay, man. Be safe. Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, brother. Appreciate the opportunity.